Yeah, there we go. All right. So yeah, just a quick recap. We looked at the homepage. There's a new subscribe button. And then we have the native plant resources page, which has a whole bunch of information that is localized to Wayne County. And this is, if you just go to Wayne County Michigan.wildones.org, all this stuff is in the resources tab. And the last thing from that resources tab that was added, and this is something that's available through Wild Ones National. If you want to go to that other page, is the Wild Ones reading list. So Wild Ones National has a collaboration with bookshop.org, and they have a curated list of books that you can purchase through the bookshop.org site, and Wild Ones actually gets a cut of that. So if you're interested in any native plant books that, and maybe you're not sure which books you're interested in, you can go there, check out the list, and purchase any books from that site, and Wild Ones will benefit from that. And that will actually help the other education grants and such that they're able to provide across the nation. Very, very cool opportunity. I know I've been looking to purchase some books, and I was kind of reluctant to yet because I didn't know which ones I wanted to, and this is going to help me figure that out. So yeah, the reading list, if you just click that big button in the middle, it'll take you to the bookshop.org page. And you can click it or not, it doesn't matter. But yeah, you can see it has a whole list of books that are available for purchase here. So just so you know you're going to the right place and getting the right, getting the kickback to Wild Ones. Cool. I have a couple other updates as well outside of the website stuff. In the Seeds to Community category. So we had our winter sowing workshop, which happened, what was it, February? Mid-February. I forget the date now. Yeah. And we sent out over 90 containers in our first time through, which was very exciting to do. And we still have, well, I have 22 species stratifying in my fridge. And there's an additional few more in Bob's fridge and Donna's fridge. So we'll have a whole lot of seed for the next time around for another event. And that is coming on June 8th. Yeah, June 8th. It's a Sunday. And that will be the uppotting workshop where we will utilize all of the things that people stratified in their milk jugs and also the things that we have stratified in artificial stratification in the refrigerator. There's a really exciting opportunity for us to make a big localized impact and provide plants not only to all of us as members or local community members that are interested, but do some projects together and maybe sponsor gardens at schools or public gardens, that sort of thing. So we're really looking forward to that event and the opportunity that it will bring for us to provide plants in our area. And let's see, anything else? I think I covered everything that I said I was going to share. So, all right, that's all. And back to Bob. Natalie, there you go.
Just go like this. Is that okay? Is this okay? Microphone wise, are we good? Okay. Hi, so I'm Natalie. I'm programs chair, if you don't know me. So I just wanted to give an update on some upcoming programs and opportunities that we have. So the next event that is hosted by Wild Ones Wayne County that we have after today is a stewardship workday here at the Environmental Interpretive Center in the natural area. So it's a part of the Stewardship Saturday series that they actually have here every month. So if you're interested in doing that at any other time, it's available monthly. I think it's the third Saturday of every month. So the one that we're going to do is April 19th, 1 to 4 p.m. So that's the next thing that we have scheduled. And also before then, we're going to be helping out with other Earth Day events at various locations like tabling. So you can come to these events and learn more about Wild Ones, meet us, and just enjoy additional events. I'm sorry? Or volunteer, yeah. So it's a great volunteer opportunity if you're just looking to learn more and get more involved. And I think what we're planning on doing, correct me if I'm wrong, is sharing those dates in like a monthly email to members. Is that right, Katie? Yeah. So we'll have those dates and locations in a monthly email that we send out. A couple of them, just as examples, are on April 6th, at the Outdoor Adventure Center. The DNR Outdoor Adventure Center will be at the Farm Day Expo. Also, perhaps Green Fest on Belle Isle on April 13th. I'm not quite sure if we're doing that yet. That's still a maybe. And also, we'll be doing some Earth Day events with the Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy on April 27th. So we've got quite a few Earth Day type things coming up. And maybe also one at Nankin Mills on April 26th. Not quite sure if that's confirmed yet either. But we have some great guest speakers lined up for the rest of the year too. I'll mention kind of a neat series that we put together with one of our guest speakers. So on May 13th, which is our next member meeting, we're going to have Karen Marzoni, who is the director of Grounds and Gardens here at the Fairlane Estate, do a presentation here in this room. And then the next meeting after that in July will actually be a walking tour of the estate. So that'll be a neat one to come to both things for like a little series. And we already mentioned the up potting workshop. So that's confirmed for June 8th here. We'll be outside. Hopefully it'll be a beautiful day. And of course, if anybody has any extra like pots, we could use some of that. Pots and trays, yeah. So if you're like me and you hoard little pots every season when you buy plants at the garden center, we could use those if you've got extras. So
Save those along with your milk jugs and water jugs, water jugs, because we're building for next year.
yeah, and if you came to our winter sowing workshop, like this is a great opportunity just to separate out species that are sprouting at that time and swap with other people. So it's like a swap to get more species. But I think also if you didn't attend that, you could still attend this and, you know, have some things to take home, because it sounds like we have a lot of surplus species and seeds and seedlings and stuff. So it'd be a great way to get started and learn more. Okay, I think that's all I have.
Member tour.
I forgot about that. I can mention that, or you can?
Mention.
Okay. Yeah, I did just send out an email inviting anybody to participate in a member-to-member yard tour. So if you're interested in hosting us, please let us know. So the way that it was done last year is if there was two yards that were like in the same area, like same city or nearby, we put those on the same Sunday, so we could visit two yards on the same Sunday afternoon. So if you're interested, just let us know. We're doing it May through September. You know, let us know what month you might want to do it, and hopefully we can pair you with maybe somebody else that's in the same general vicinity. But don't feel pressure to have everything look perfect at your yard. It's not like the traditional garden tours. If everything doesn't look what you think of as perfect, that's totally okay. I did it last year and it was super fun, and I can't wait to host another one. So I'm hoping to host one in my yard again in New Boston. So if anyone's interested in that, please let us know.
So each one to see what works, see, you help suggest things that's not working for the particular host, and it's a lot of fun. I take away something from every single yard I visit, a design or a plant. Last year I saw a not bee balm. What was it? I can't remember now. But yeah, I took it away, and I have two of those plants this year. I wish I could remember. I have probably 30 some species in my small yard right now. I'd like to talk about, we touched on volunteer opportunities. Again, I'm going to preach this at every single meeting we have. The chapter doesn't work without volunteers helping. Yeah, I mean, you can understand that just a small amount of people that are doing all the work, the chapter will eventually just stop. The volunteers give the chapter life. And again, we have a number of committees that you might be interested in. Social media committee, habitat stewardship committee, where we're going to be pick habitats or natural habitats or near natural habitats to steward. And we have a committee chair for that. Community Science Committee, and that is Kelly, who's heading that up. And those are a bunch of interesting science projects through SciStarter and iNaturalist that she's very big in, that she's going to share with us that we could take part in as a chapter. Also School Gardens Committee, which we're talking about opening up into something more expansive than school gardens, maybe children's programs. You know, that's what school gardens are aimed at, children. But we're talking about expanding that out to other events and projects that are not necessarily involved with revolve around the school garden. And also grants and fundraising. We're just starting to kick that off. If any of these committees interest you, please, we'd love to have you volunteer. Again, I'm only looking for an hour a week. Everybody has an hour a week to give, and we could find something for you to do for an hour. It will grow on you. Let's see. We have a volunteer list. Do we have a volunteer list back there, Donna? Volunteer sign up?
Yeah.
The volunteer sign up back there? Donna is our volunteer chair. She's a volunteer coordinator. And all you have to do is sign up with her, and we'll find someplace for you to fit in. Come talk to Donna. Okay, I guess William Kirst, we're ready for I'd like to introduce William. I've known William for a number of years. He's started off, he'll tell you a little more about that, but Adapt Community Support Ecology, and it's where he and his volunteers donated a tray of plants to an interested homeowner, native interested homeowners, and got them started in native plant garden. Is that correct, though?
Yeah, more or less.
Well, let me turn it over to you, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and
Yeah, thank you,
presentation.
Bob.
Mhm.
I believe I actually asked Bob if he would become a community leader for us many years ago. Because I wanted to break into, are you in Novi or Northville? I remember seeing some pictures regarding, anyway. So yeah, I am William. Maybe Marissa and Kelly know me as Billy. I often go by William, just in professional settings, simply because when people get an email and they're thinking about spending $25,000 on a garden, that maybe they want to hear something that sounds better than Billy. So anyways, what's in a name? So yeah, I started Adapt Community Supported. Well, let me tell you this. I'll give you a little intro, and then I'm gonna ask something really specific and fun for you all. And if you all give into it, it'll be great. And then I'll kind of go into the talk in general. So the intro is long and kind of convoluted, so I'll make it really short. Basically, I've worked in the fields of ecological restoration since moving to Ann Arbor in 2005, and native plant gardening design consultation. And I got sick of doing things on my own. I just didn't want to run a business. I wanted to work for somebody else. So I started working for a local organic landscaper, and I saw this really just ugly dark side of landscaping and how they use the idea of organic as being such a virtuous thing, But they mostly use it as a fear tactic in order to charge ridiculous prices for their services. And then, me, somebody they hired to be their landscape manager, they took me on because I was inexperienced, um, and were paying me $13.50 an hour. And then I found out they were charging $75 an hour per person. And I was like, no. And all the things you're doing are really terrible. So they would treat Canada thistle by digging it out of the ground. And I spent hours digging Canada thistle out of a prairie. And I was like, this is so wrong. This goes against every single thing I know. And finally, one day there was we were renewing a raspberry bed on this 10-acre property. And it was probably like roughly about 1,000 square foot raspberry bed. And we were digging Canada thistle out of this raspberry bed. And we spent 2 days digging Canada thistle out. And probably those of you who have dug Canada thistle know that it doesn't matter how much you dig it out, you're not getting all of the Canada thistle. And so there were 4 of us working, essentially 2 like 7-hour days. So that was 56 hours. And those people paid 75 times 56, whatever that is, for us to do a completely ineffective job when they could have just gone over an acre and planted a new raspberry garden. It would have been great. And so that like really set me off. I was like, there's not enough people who understand ecology well enough to make informed decisions. So this particular family was so on to the organic side of things and things being organic as being ecologically beneficial or virtuous, but they didn't see that they had just spent, $5,000, however much it cost, when they could have donated that to the wild ones, they could have donated it to the Nature Conservancy, and the Conservancy could have bought 2 more acres. There's so many things that they could have done with that money that would have been really ecologically beneficial. And I should ask you guys this. And you can write in the chat, those of you who are online. I realize there's more people in person. I grew up in Chicago and I sometimes swear. So if there's anybody really against swearing, tell me now and I'll try not to do it. But we basically fucked up her garden. I mean, it was so stupid. And I was like, this person just spent $5,000 for us to play in the dirt. And she feels like she's doing a good thing. Um, there's a place for that, but you don't have to spend $5,000 to do it. So after that day, I went home and I was like, I can't do this anymore. We need to figure out some way that we can connect with people. And our idea was, okay, we have all these native plants. Let's just grow a bunch, use our own. Let's raise some money and just buy plants, and we'll just go door to door, and we'll either offer the plants to our neighbors. We'll ask them, if they would like some kind of consultation. We'll ask them if they want a garden. We'll plant it. We'll plant it with them. And we were coming up with this idea in the fall of 2019, and we started raising money in the winter of 2019, and things were going good, and we were really looking forward to it. And then all of a sudden, like February, things started getting a little iffy, and then come, the middle of March, all of a sudden, we're not going anywhere. So we put it online and we said we had all this money. I think, within the first couple months, we were maybe raising like $100 a month. So enough to buy, no, it was more than that. I don't remember it anyway. Enough to buy some flats to buy some plants. And so we had plants, we had people that were enthusiastic about it. So we decided to just put it on Facebook, and all of a sudden we got a lot of interest. So that first year, just me, I planted something like 27 single plug flat, mixed plug flat gardens and gave away kits for another 30 some. And it just so happened we were moving to New Zealand. So some friends in Ann Arbor were like, this needs to continue. And I said, okay, well, I'm leaving. I can kind of run the ship from there if you'll take over some of the physical aspects, in town. and Sean Severance, who I think might be a Wild One member, but she does a lot of stuff in Washtenaw County. Um, and Rob Johnston, who used to work for the City of Ann Arbor Natural Area Preservation and now works for Stantec. And a couple other people were like, okay, yeah, we'll keep it going. And over that winter, we started looking for, we're like, this works really well, so let's expand it. And one of the people that joined us was Marissa. So, hi, Marissa. Nice to see you. Um, and she became one of our first community leaders. And now, many years later, we have kind of a rotating mixed cast of about 30 community leaders in, I think, 14 or 15 different cities in 3 states. And yeah, what our main goal is to meet with people in the community and just help guide their ecological learning. Because as many of you know, and this is probably one of the reasons why you're at the Wild Ones, you like get online and you're like, native plants, I've heard they're good. What should I do? And you're like, you type in native plants wherever, and then all of a sudden the information comes at you. And then you're like, oh, I still have no idea what I'm doing. And I think for most people, they get into it from an information side of things, and the information can be overwhelming. Um, and so just having somebody around who actually goes to their place and makes that one-on-one connection is, for us, the most important thing. It's not enough to just be like, hey, we have this information, come to us. We're like, hey, we will come to you. We offer all of our services free of charge. Much like you guys, we wholly depend on donations. So if you're not all tapped out in the donor world, please feel free to drop some coins in our bucket. We greatly appreciate it. That's been going good. 2 years ago, we started Adapt Landscapes because, I'd like to think that in part because of our efforts, there's a lot more people asking for native plant gardens and for bigger ones. So we started Adapt Landscapes to help fill that niche as well. And so Adapt Landscapes is an LLC, and we are a full-scale design and installation landscaping company. And our goal is actually to compete with some of the bigger, ultimately to compete with some of the bigger landscapers and to do really elegant, beautiful native perennial edible landscapes and hardscapes, carpentry, landscape construction, so that we can move into that realm that's dominated by people who are, who don't necessarily have the ecological knowledge of that would be beneficial. I think most of these people who get into landscaping really have the feeling that, yeah, they want to make things better in the world, but then when you're using conventional plants, as obviously you all know, you're only making a moderate difference. So one of the big things that I've really come to learn and believe is, and one thing I like to do is push buttons. So I hope I push some of your buttons here today. Is that our gardens actually don't make any difference ecologically, at least not in the way that we think they do. The plants that you put in your garden are amazing. They're obviously supporting insect life. If you're connected to areas where they can support reptiles, amphibians, birds, you're seeing that your garden supports life. But if the larger natural areas continue to disappear around us, then your garden may become a little oasis, but the smaller or the larger areas as they disappear, these smaller isolated, let's just even call it we'll call our gardens a remnant, they become very fragile. And especially in our human communities, if we're the only person that has a native plant garden, then our garden has no resilience, because if we leave that place, chances are, unless we've worked really hard to find an owner who is as crazy as we are, then it's going to be turned into a lawn. So the actual ecological power we have is communities. And so, I've thought a lot about how do we, what's the most important thing that we can get in our native plant gardens? And really, it's humans. And so today I would like to tell you all how to attract humans to your native plant garden. So I have a favor to ask of all of you. If you're on Zoom, um, can you please turn on your camera for just a moment so I can see all your faces, because it's so weird to just look at this screen where all I can see is myself talking. Um, Thank you guys so much. So as you might be able to tell, I'm a fairly extroverted person. Hi, Kelly. Kelly's also one of our community leaders. It's so nice to see you as well. Um, and uh, and then for the in-person people, roughly how many people are there? Do you guys? Yes, thank you. Yay. Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry that I couldn't make it out. And any other, if you guys did it on a Wednesday night or a Thursday, I would definitely come out. Hi, Jennifer. Um, hey, Lisa, you're there too. Lisa's never been a community leader, but we have interacted a lot on Facebook. Um, um, yes, so I have to do this on Zoom, and I don't really like computers, if I can be completely honest, and I wish we could all get off computers. All right, so you're welcome to turn off your cameras now. So what I would like to do is set a scene for you all. And Jennifer, you'll have done this already, and any of you who were at the WAM conference last week or the week before will have some experience with what we're about to do. But I like to do this because, well, I'll tell you why I like to do it afterwards. So try your best to just be with me and follow along with this, especially all of you who are in the room together where I'm not, because if I were in there, I could look at all of you and make sure that you were doing it. So we're going to do a little visualization meditation. It's going to take about 5 minutes tops. If you're really tired and you start to fall asleep, all I gotta say is there's enough judgment in this world. Just go ahead and fall asleep and enjoy the nap. Um, when the rest of you open your eyes and you see your friend passed out next to you, just give him a little nudge. And if you're at home, I hope you have a wonderful evening. So, if we could, just before we close our eyes, everybody just kind of like sit there and make sure you're seated in a way that feels really grounded to you. You feel very stable, whether your feet are on the floor. I always like to sit cross-legged. Try to have your back straight. Take a deep breath in and out. Take another breath in. And then the third time you do it, as you breathe out, close your eyes. Okay, now wherever you are, I want you to know that 100%, this is not the least bit of a metaphor. I'm not being poetic, but where you are sitting is on the earth. If you are 15 stories up in a high rise, if you're sitting on a plastic folding chair, if you're in your house with a hardwood floor and a basement below you, you are still sitting on the earth. Everything that you have around you right now, where you are, is from the earth. There is no not earth for all intents and purposes unless we go out into outer space. And even then, everything that is keeping us alive is still earth. So wherever you are, in whatever situation, you can feel that grounded energy of the fact that the earth is there supporting you. The clothes you have on, the shoes, the solid ground, the hardwood floor, the marble, the vinyl floor that was a fern forest. 400 million years ago. So in this place, what I'd like you to do is imagine your happy place at home. For me, I like to think that I'm in my kitchen. It's a Saturday morning around 8:30. It's like a late spring, maybe like May 20th. The coffee's amazing. The air is just warm enough, but not so warm where you're like afraid you're gonna break a sweat. And the sun is it's early, so the sun is just kind of streaming through the trees. And I have this beautiful view outside through the front of my house, through my picture window, where my whole front yard garden exists. And one half of it is a vegetable garden that has a border of native plants around it. And then the other side of the walk leading to the sidewalk has some fruit trees and a strawberry patch. But then is also just mostly native plants, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I've worked on this for 11 years, and I've done a variety of different things. We tilled one side when we first moved in. We did a bunch of sheep mulching in one area. In another area, we used herbicide. Some places are purposefully planted. Other spots, we just threw random seeds out. Other spots kind of wildcrafted themselves from things that we planted and things that flew in. All in all, it's an absolutely gorgeous place. And so I want you to think of that if you have that at your house. If you don't have that at your house, I want you to think of a natural area that you've been to that gives you that feeling of just solidness, groundedness, but not heavy. Very just feels light and easy and perfect, and just the way the world should be, and the way that we should feel, that you wish you could just feel all the time. Part of what I like about this, about my garden in particular, and if you can tap into this, if you have this, is that I put a lot of work into it. So I am proud of what I've been able to build. And it's been in there long enough that I've seen some of the more interesting insects starting to return. So there's that feeling of, pride, but it's not like a selfish pride. It's like a pride, like it's a connection to the world around you. And take and breathe that in. Just enjoy it. Let yourself feel that enjoyment, that just good feeling that's deeply, deeply right. Now, when I lift my head up, and maybe many of you have this experience as well, I lift my head up and I look across the street, and there's my neighbor's house, and their lawn is perfectly manicured. They were out there about an hour ago while I was still sleeping, mowing their lawn, and I wish they hadn't mowed it because they had True Green come the day before, and it still smelled, just the nitrogen fertilizer smell that happens after they spray. Oh man, and obviously I'm like freaking out when they're doing the spraying. I'm like, guys, it's a little too windy today. Maybe you shouldn't be spraying. But even more than that, I'm just like, oh, I wish they wouldn't go on their lawn. Like, oh my God, come on, you guys. And yet they do. And every time I look over there, I just feel like a tightening in my chest. And I just wish that they would like do something different. Even just let the weeds grow for uh, just something, put a few more plants. I've tried to talk to them. It just never works. There's a big distinction between how I feel in my garden and the angst that I feel looking across the street. Now, across the street, my neighbor just finished mowing their lawn, and they're sitting at their kitchen table on this beautiful morning on May 20th with their steaming cup of coffee, and they're looking out their window at their absolutely impeccable lawn. There's not a weed there. It's just perfectly cut to, it's like nice buzz cut, such a beautiful dark green. Their shrubs are all perfectly manicured. They feel so good. They feel really proud of the effort that they've put into their garden, and they love it because they care so much for their community, and they know that, you know, they're doing something really good by keeping all the weeds at bay from the people who walk by. The kids can go by and run on the lawn. It's always cut and short. And they live in this reverie for a moment until they look up and across the street and they see my garden, and they are like absolutely horrified. They heard from somebody down the street that they were walking by the other day and they swear they saw a snake. And they won't even come, they would never cross and walk on our side of the street because of how many bees there are flying through all of the flowers. And oh my God, how often these flowers just like flop over and look so ugly. And it's just like a jungle and it makes no sense. And they feel so bad every single time they look across the street. And there we are, neighbors, both having a certain feeling about our landscape and a completely at odds with each other. And both things are true. So if we can all open our eyes. So this is what I think is at the crux of a lot of our ecological issues. And it really actually has nothing to do with the plants, but it has to do everything with how we perceive difference in many ways. So now I'm going to share some things with you. Let me see if I share. Oh, here we go. Cool. All right. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Do you guys see, if one of you can talk, do you see just the whole screen or do you see my little side panel over here as well?
We see your side panel too.
Well, let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Do, 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 do. That's it? Oh, yes. Okay. So if you can see through this picture, you can see literally the scene that I'm talking about. My garden, it was pretty wild, but it was also, it looked pretty nice. So what we do in Adapt is that we exist to sustain and promote the connections between people and the land that supports us through the community co-creation of native plant and perennial food landscapes. To us, the community is center. Without community, we don't really have much of anything. The reason that we're into ecology, right, is and the reason like plants work together well is because of community. So whatever we can do to tap into that, um, I I find to be the most important thing. I should save this for the end, and I will. I'll come back to it. This is a garden that you can imagine in a nice morning, a nice afternoon. Here we go. So what I want to do, what I hope to do today is convince you that that person across the street from you is no different than, there's no difference between the way they're thinking about their landscape and the way you're thinking about your landscape. And when you realize that, then you can start to attract people to your garden and enact change with the people that are around you. And it starts from really tapping into your own sense of how good your garden feels and realizing that that feeling you have is the same exact feeling that anybody has who is working on their garden in any way. And the main thing that you never want to do if you're trying to make a connection with somebody is to go take a piss on the thing that they love, right? I never figured out a way how to talk to the neighbor who lived across the street from me, and that was okay. I never went and proselytized to her. We always had conversations that were pleasant. The neighbor next to me on the other side, they were the same way. After many years of living together, I did get them to stop spraying. I shouldn't say I got them. Through lots of conversations, they realized that spraying their lawn wasn't something that they wanted to do, and that growing food in their backyard was something they wanted to do. I never once asked them to stop spraying. I never asked them to grow anything. Simply through being in the garden and constantly talking to them, I was able to make a connection with them. So there's a few things that we want to think of when we're thinking about attracting humans to our garden. The first and foremost, I want to be honest with you guys, I don't do slideshow presentations. I don't like them. What we want to do is, first and foremost, is not piss off our neighbors, thinking that we're doing something ecologically good. Because again, our backyard, our front yard doesn't make that much of a difference. But if we're able to get other people to take our garden or take the idea of native plants out of our garden, and then they start doing things, then our garden will start to make an ecological difference. So at its foundation, what we're doing when we're doing ecological restoration through native plant garden is that we are taking the pieces that are missing from our landscape and we're putting them back in place. Hopefully, we're doing this in a way that looks really good and is really comfortable. And what that means is that we're taking essentially all these pieces and we're editing them in a way that can for the culture of our neighborhood. So here in Ann Arbor, we can do basically whatever we want. In fact, there's like vegetation ordinance rules, and in the city of Ann Arbor, the vegetation ordinance rule is that you have to have vegetation under 12 inches, within 3 feet of the sidewalk, and, certain plants aren't allowed. And all of this is crossed off if you have a design native plant garden. There are no rules except for sight lines out of driveways. There's no height restrictions on plants. That's not the case in most places. And that's okay. And honestly, Ann Arbor should have slightly more stringent rules because people, anywhere there's rules, people are going to run with them, right? So we want to respect the culture of our neighborhood, and we want to create our gardens and edit them in a way that is going to draw in everybody. So it means that we need to have an understanding of what the culture of our neighborhood is. Now, obviously, if our neighborhood is all new build subdivisions and there's no gardens, then no matter what we do, we're going to be pushing it in a very different direction. So what I like to say is that if you have a good idea of what the culture of your neighborhood is, then make sure you know exactly where that line is and then just step over it. Because it's the act of stepping over that line that creates a slight bit of tension. And that slight bit of tension is what will get people to get interested. It will create a little bit of cognitive dissonance where people will start asking questions. And we want those questions because we want to be able to answer them. And we want to be able to answer them in, a nice, friendly way. If we keep too buttoned and we're never out in our garden, especially out in front of people, then we're going to miss that opportunity to have the interaction with other people in our garden. So Hey, Marissa, you remember this? So, Marissa, well, this is one of my favorite moments of all time. I'm just gonna look at that and be happy about it. Marissa and I worked on this proposal for her HOA. This is in the middle of a big subdivision. It's a big long park, and this area had lots of flooding. And Marissa actually had started a really nice native plant garden in her front yard and in her backyard. And I'm sorry about my cough. Let me grab some water. Guys, I said 2 episodes. Sorry, I also had to get my children away from the TV. And so maybe Marissa could actually talk about this a little bit. But I remember when we were speaking, talking a lot about how community involvement is super important. Yes, we want to take care. Oh, there is some flooding there, and you can actually see kind of where it's wet by the wheelbarrow. And so we wanted to do whatever we could to kind of ameliorate some of the water issues. So we worked on a proposal and no, out. I already said no. No, Rowan. Let me reorient myself here. Hold on just a moment, everybody. I have very strong-minded children. So we wanted to get the community together and build something that was really acceptable. So what I like about this picture is it brings about one of the kind of design issues that I often, or design elements that I often recommend people. So many years ago, a professor from U of M, Joan Nassauer, proposed this idea of cues to care. And a lot of the ways that they recommended cues to care was to have like a border of lawn surrounding your garden. And probably many of you have had this experience, but a border of lawn around a native plant garden is such a huge pain in the ass. And you have to maintain it meticulously. And if you don't maintain it meticulously, the cool season grasses, if you don't maintain it meticulously, which literally nobody ever has, the cool season grasses just sneak right into the garden. And then all of a sudden, your garden starts to get kind of ratty. And then you lose all the cues to care, right? So one thing that can be done, and I always recommend people build their gardens right up to an impervious surface. And and mostly it's a sidewalk or a driveway, and then line that with something, even if it's just rocks, and then you give yourself like an extra foot of space or 8 inches. From plants sneaking over to people. And it looks like maybe this is like prairie dropseed right here, some kind of native grass. So I'm sure it reaches over those stones, but it's not planted right up next to the sidewalk. So you're not getting like 2 feet of grass. And then do plant aggressive, low-growing things right up to that, because it's not lawns that people care about. It's uniformity of color and texture and height. If you have that anywhere in your garden, it almost doesn't matter what you're putting into the garden. It's going to look good, and it's going to be something that people will understand. So this first step in planting a native garden that attracts humans is making sure that you're not creating any resistance or recalcitrance to your garden in the first place. And so that means respecting the culture of your neighborhood, just pushing past the boundary, and then making sure that we're planting things that in along the paths, sidewalks, driveways, the plants aren't reaching out and touching people. Because I'm sure there's even some of you in here who may not like insects very much, or may not like plants to be, touching them. And that's totally fine. We're not all the same. I don't particularly like all that much metal music, but I don't get mad at other people who like metal, you know? And so I'm not going to get upset at people who don't like plants, I love walking through fens and seeing like, ooh, there's a cool plant under all that poison sumac. Let's go check it out. That's not something that most normal people want to do, and that's okay. We want those normal people still involved because there's a lot more of them than there are of us. And if we can get them into the native plant garden, then we're going to start making a difference. So hold on just a moment. Sorry, you guys are going to have to hear me say this. Phoebe, I'm really on this meeting and I cannot speak right now. Here, come here, Phoebe. Get over here. Get over here. Can you say hi to everybody? Hi. Ecology is bringing your children into the meeting. So Phoebe, go get a washcloth and put over it. Okay.
Who's that? Is that me?
You guys were at this garden planting, yes, but can you go back over there? This is not working for me, guys. I'm sorry. You can read a book now. Okay. Attracting humans to your native plant garden means attracting people who are not who you might not think would be the kind of person who would be interested in it, and then being open to the fact that they might be. There can be some rough, crazy people out there, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you want to plant some chestnut trees? That's really cute. I would love to. Some people, when you go and you plant we plant our gardens. Again, here's Ann Arbor. Anything goes. I was actually just working in this garden today with this person because she is now my business partner, and from having no experience with native plants, she's now co-running Adapt Landscapes with me. And is absolutely phenomenal. Bringing people into your garden, and I think that this is something that you guys do a lot, maybe meeting people on their landscape where they want something done, but they have no idea what it is, and just talking to them about the possibilities. In this garden, can you see my cursor moving around at all? Okay. This person we ended up planting a 2-acre prairie for right next door, and it's this person's house, and we spent a whole winter just removing buckthorn. I have no idea what they're doing now, but they wanted to learn about protecting this lake back here. And after our meeting, they all kind of teamed up with each other and just started doing things to protect their lake. One of the main things they did was getting rid of a lot of purple loosestrife. I don't know what's taking its place. How many of you know this person right here? I hope some of you do, because this is the president of the Wild Ones. This is Loris Damerow, and one of I don't exactly know where this fits in, but hey guys, can you come here and close this door, please? They're doing their hair now. Loris and I spent a lot of time talking about these very ideas. And so she wanted to have a garden of her own that attracted people. So we spent a few weeks one winter ago, shortly after she moved to Ann Arbor, just working on the design of her garden and creating a more flowing space. So one thing that I find really important when we're thinking about attracting people to our gardens is we want a space, first of all, that we are proud of. If we're proud of the garden, then our energy and enthusiasm for the garden is going to come out when other people are around, when we're talking about it, when we're showing people the garden, when, we're just kicking back around the campfire or sitting on our porch and we're looking out, even without speaking about it, if you feel really good in a space, that energy just goes off into other people. So if then what we can do, and I think that this is an area where it's really important to be truly kind of in touch with your own emotional side and to make sure that you're not faking whether you really feel proud about it. So if you really feel proud and not like, that like sinly sense of pride, but like that, that good, easy feeling that I was talking about before. If you have little things that are just nagging at you, you should dive into those things because they're probably trying to tell you something. And like if you're feeling super defensive about your garden in any situation, it probably means there's some big problems with it. Because, defensiveness is a form of fear in many ways, right? Somebody tells us our garden looks like a jungle, and we're like, oh, but it's good. You're like, really, what we could say is, yeah, it kind of does look like a jungle. I'm sorry. And if we want to invite people into it, we need to know that because what we can do is we can just edit it. So if you feel proud, that's good. The next thing is that we want the people who come in to our garden to feel easy about it. We want them to feel like, I wonder if I have it. I don't. We want them to feel a sense of safety in it and pleasantness. And I think so when we did the talk last week for the WAM conference, Mike Weiss from Dropseed had a picture of his like first garden and the sidewalk to his house. You couldn't even see it, and there was like no way you'd be able to walk through it at all because all the plants are just like over everything. And he said like a cop came and was like looking for his house. I don't remember why, but the cop was like, that's jungle in there. If you actually had, some problem, we would not have been able to find your house." And I think that's like a fine example. Like, sure, the plants are great, but nobody walking by that is going to feel like good about it. So it's not a garden that it's welcoming people in. And if the garden's not welcoming people in, people aren't taking that garden out from where it is. So another thing is if we feel good about the garden and we bring people into the garden and they feel good about it, what they're going to leave that experience with is not like bee balm is good for hummingbirds or greenbrier, bristly greenbrier supports the turbulent Phosphala moth. What they're going to leave is just with that feeling. And that feeling is so much more important than any knowledge about plants or insects or ecology. Because I would challenge all of you to think about how you first got into doing what you're doing with native plants. Was it because you heard some argument about how native plants support insects and you were like, that's right, I'm going to support insects. Or, you know, I guess, native plants are deep rooted, and I mean, and their roots sequester carbon. Or was there something really where it all kind of came together in some magical package, and all of a sudden you're like, bam, and that feeling just flooded your body, and you're like, this makes sense. Oh, I can kind of see how this works. Or you were in somebody's garden and all of those things kind of wrapped up and they presented themselves to you as a good feeling. I'm going to guess that probably most of you came to it through this feeling of goodness. And not like, maybe in the back of your head, you were like, the world is fucked up. It's burning. Everything's going to shit. Oh, I need to do something now, and came to it through anger. But probably more, you always had those things going through your head, and you were like, oh, this is a place of love. I can love this little patch of ground, and I can love it into life. And then you saw the life happen. And so that is what we want other people taking from us. And that really is what people will take from us. In order to learn about the turbulent phosphelia moth and bristly greenbrier, you need to either see this in the garden and then be the kind of person who isn't just abjectly horrified by this and then figure out what it is. Or you might go to a conference because you're one of those native plant people that all of a sudden likes to go to conferences. But this isn't the picture you start anybody with. You're not like, you don't see the smilax growing up and all its thorns coming out, and you're like, oh, that's a great plant. You should see when it gets covered with all these worms. And people are like, ew, I don't want that. Cut that down right now. So intellectual arguments rarely work with anybody. And I don't know, maybe, not to get political. I like to think that this is sub-political. You've probably noticed that intellectual arguments don't work very well when you're trying to convince people of anything political. So I always urge people, like, if you notice this doesn't work the first time, why do you keep doing it? And the reason we keep doing it is because it feeds some like weird little emptiness inside of ourselves, But you don't need to feed that little emptiness. You can just come from the place of love and growing and knowing that life is going to happen and be confident in sharing that. We think we want to have control, and our world is and has always been and will always be a place where we don't have control. The only thing that we have control over is our own actions. And we especially don't have control over our neighbors. But we can invite neighbors into a loving relationship with us and our yards if we are centering them in the design process of our yards. And if we start our design process with thinking about how we're going to include our neighbors, and even if, design isn't something that's just like at the beginning, I've designed something and now I'm done. Now what am I going to do? Too late. No, design is iterative. If you've had your native plant garden for 20 years, you can still design it because, and I'll offer this as a warning, if all of your neighbors, if you've had a native plant garden for 20 years and your neighborhood doesn't have native plants all around it yet, then as soon as you leave, your native plant garden is going to be lawn, and it's not the new homeowner's fault. It's just the way it's going to be. So what you could do now is in your next part of the design process, take an honest look at your garden. Do you have too much prairie dock? Do you have any cut plant? Do you have switchgrass? Is it looking a little ratty? Were you one of the first people who planted things and you saw big blue stem and you're like, this is great. And you have big blue stem and it's basically all of your yard. Those aren't gardens that people like very much, except people like us, right? So, but it's okay. You can change it. It doesn't have to be that way. And you can give yourself the leeway to think about your garden in a slightly different way. Think about your garden in terms of how can I attract people to it? How can I attract people in a way that makes them feel welcome and excited, energized, curious, and want to, and they're going to leave this space in a way that feels really good for them. The last thing I'll say, I actually, this meeting's being recorded. Okay, I'll stop sharing. I want to say one last thing about attracting people to your garden, and this is like just absolutely the best thing you can do. Offer your garden. And this is kind of how Adapt started. I just started offering my garden. And this is like a really great native plant tip. You've probably noticed that if you've planted some native plants that are good for your soil, that they are super happy and start growing everywhere. Now, you also probably know that native plants are really tough, especially the ones that decide to make themselves known everywhere in your garden. You, in your editing your garden process, don't have to feel bad about getting rid of plants because they're native. All you have to do is grab it by its neck and pull it out of the ground. And then cut most of it off. So there's just like 2 nodes at the bottom, bunch of roots, and then put them in a bucket of water. Those plants are fine. Now you have plants that you can give to neighbors. You don't need to dig them nicely out of the ground. So I'll just rattle some plants off the top of my head that you can do this to. Any of the Monardas, any Echinacea, any Rudbeckia. Grasses are a little bit hard, but some of them you can. Definitely Penstemon hirsutus, Penstemon digitalis. That can kind of just give up. If you're a little, if you grab it by the corm, you can do it to wild geraniums. You can do it to violets. Any aster, any goldenrod, basically any late flowering anything, you can just rip them out of the ground. Those you don't even need any leaves, just cut them to the stems and put them in water. It gives you the opportunity to edit your garden at first without feeling bad that you're just killing all these plants. And now you have a plant that you can give to somebody else. So you can get on, you can preach to the choir and give to your local chapter of Wild Ones, but you could put up a sign in your front yard and say plants. If you're someone like Kelly or Marissa, you can make a nice sign that goes along with it that, shows what the plants look like when they're flowering. You can just go to your neighbors, text a few people, be like, hey, I got some plants. I saw that spot in your garden. You want to put some there? Yeah, cool. And you can just offer them to people. Then your garden starts growing. You can also think about things. Flowers get floppy, right? Monarda is mostly like 4 to 5 feet tall. And then you'll have, a nice wet summer where it's been 79 degrees for like 5 weeks straight. And the Monarda is for some reason 7 feet tall. And you're like, how on earth did this happen? And the Monarda, it rained and now it's like, it's just leaning completely over your sidewalk. Just cut the thing down, put the flowers in a little bouquet, cut some yellow cone flower as well. It's an all-American combo, and give a bouquet to somebody. Put a bunch of bouquets out and say free flowers. Have some other things in your garden that you can give to people. So I think I mentioned this at WHAM. When you do pull plants out of your garden, if there's weeds, sprinkle some like lettuce seed or some kind of or kale or some kind of vegetable. You can, harvest it on your own. And if you make a habit out of doing this, you'll have so much food that you can give. You should never. Pro tip, you should never buy leafy greens May through October. If you have a yard, there's literally no reason. There's so much space. Just sow it everywhere. And your friends shouldn't have to buy leafy greens either. So you can give it to them. grow strawberries, grow raspberries. They're weeds. They are absolute crazy weeds. Just like harvest the strawberries and give them to people. Maybe not strawberries. Uh, Strawberries are too good. I wouldn't give it. Maybe I'd give if I was feeling really nice. But raspberries are crazy. You know, if you have a patch of black raspberries, just harvest them and give them to friends. Um, People love getting things. Okay. If you give somebody strawberries or raspberries for 3 years in a row, that third or fourth year, you can be like, hey, would you like to just grow some of your own? And bam, all of a sudden, you know, even if nobody's been doing anything, you give them one of these plants and they're stunned, they're amazed. They can learn botany and gardening through just one plant. You know, they're not trying to learn all of ecology. All of a sudden, now they know what a rhizomatous species is. Now they know what a runner is. Um, Big leaf aster. Yeah. I love it. I would love to know, yeah, so some of the other plants you guys have pulled out of the ground. Feel free to write those as strawberries. I mean, strawberries, you can just literally rip them. You can take a runner, just like tear the whole thing off, and then go put it. You don't even have to really plant it, right? You just like lay it on somebody's yard and then just step it into the ground, and you'll have strawberries. So there was something you guys, maybe Bob said at the beginning. Again, I said I like to push people's buttons. One thing that we don't do often at Adapt is work. You know, we always cede power to our local chapters. We want people to do what they feel is best for their community within a certain set of constraints. Like you're not going to plant vinca. I don't care. You know, we're not paying for that. I don't care what you think. Um, but one thing I often encourage people away from is working with schools. Unless the schools have unless the way that you're going to be working with them is to set up a dedicated grounds team to take care of whatever's going on. I have never seen a successful school garden that lasts. Um, you know, you can definitely see them on Instagram, but I think it's just magic. I think the lifespan of a successful school garden is generally 3 or 4 years, which is like right when it gets to mature, then that's when it goes to shit. Because the original people who were really into it then graduate out. There's no budget, there's no knowledge, there's no institutional knowledge. So right now with Adapt, we're writing a restoration ecology curriculum through native plant gardening for schools, and we've gotten a big grant, and so we're working with the Ann Arbor STEAM School right now to try to build in a curriculum so that the kids are always in the garden, no matter what. There's so many things that can be learned in a landscape. And so we're putting a bunch of those things in there. And I say this, you know, kind of almost as a warning because I know that it's like we want to get people involved, but we can't get people involved unless we're prepared to be there as their community. Because if we attract people to our native plant garden and they get lost in it, right? Then what's going to happen is that there's going to be a lot of wild gardens, and I realize that you're called the wild ones, but most people don't like that. And if we want to be serious about ecological restoration, then we need to be serious about taking everybody's feelings into consideration as 100% valid and work with them. And school gardens are always this thing that's just like, I want it so bad because I love kids and I love interacting with them and I love the enthusiasm and excitement. But then with schools, there's summertime, you know? What is your curriculum for summertime? Is always the first question that I ask. And they're always like, "Oh, we don't do anything, but one of the teachers is a neighbor and lives nearby." And I'm like, "No, no, you cannot. Are you paying your teacher extra to be a landscape manager? Then no, no, that doesn't work." So so I encourage you guys, if you're working with schools, to be really thoughtful. And it's, one of the best words, one of the first words we learn as kids is one of the most powerful, and one that we should use more often, and that's no. No, can't do it right now. That's not going to work. We need to be really thoughtful about this. And all that allows is it allows you to say yes to other things and to use your time um, really wisely and virtuously. And I know I've gone all over the place, and I appreciate your patience with me, especially with my kids and I don't. I meant to say at the beginning that my throat is a little froggy today. It's because we had a burn, and I wanted to get some really cool pictures, and I was in the smoke for just a little too long. Um, um, so thank you. Um, I really hope that this has elicited some thoughts in your mind. Um, we at Adapt Community Supported Ecology are always looking for community leaders. And this year, Kelly, I don't know if I think maybe Rachel reached out to you. We're going to do something that we've gotten a lot of feedback from community leaders about training. And so this year, so every year in the past, we've had a 1-day community leader training program. And this year, we're doing 4 weeks of an online class each week leading up to the in-person community leader training, and it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I'm really excited about it. Community leaders that we have, basically, as I said, we give a lot of power over to the community leaders to decide how they want to interact. What we do is we provide kind of logistics and some knowledge and plants. And then we say, here are some people in your neighborhood, or go out and meet people and give away 5 kits and plant 5 gardens. Um, and yeah, I like to think it's a fun experience. Um, it's easy for me to dig sod and do things like that. But that's also something that we will be talking about in our community leader training. As I also said, everything that we do through Community Supported Ecology is offered free of charge. We love to we have a lot of donors who donate mostly in the $5 to $10 a month range. We would love if all of you who have heard our talk today would get on our website and offer a donation. We love the two, $5, $10 a month. If any of you are really wealthy and are looking for another place to deposit your money, we happily take that too. Um, and then Adapt Landscapes, as I said, is a full-scale design and installation firm. We love to build, from fancy stuff to rain gardens, raised beds, perennial edibles, orchards. We've somehow done almost it all in 3 years. So if any of you guys are looking for that, or if you know other people who need contractors, please have them reach out to us. We do serve all of Wayne County. And now I realize it's late, but if there are any questions that you guys might have, I would love to answer any of them. And if you're on, and feel free to write in the chat or just unmute your microphone and ask away.
Pardon me? Yes, anybody in person? We have a mic here to pass around. Anybody online? Go ahead and put your questions in chat.
And then reminder, there was a slide you were going to share at the end that you saved for the end.
Oh yeah,
I think
sure.
it covered the things you just mentioned, I
It
think.
did, yeah, here. Oh, and you know what? I actually have I'll send you a 2-page handout that I wrote for this that I wanted to get to you earlier. but I did not. Yeah. So this is what we do. Yeah, if you do feel like, dropping some coins in the bucket, that QR code in the bottom right takes you directly to our donation page. So this is what we do. This, I don't know if it might, all this information is on our website, which is adaptecology.org. So I'm gonna stop sharing just in case anything came up in the chat. Oh, thank you, Kelly. I'll also say that I am hopelessly creative and sometimes just can't do the obvious things, or maybe most often can't. Is there? It looks like somebody's standing there in the room, ready to ask something. I'm ready to
Yeah.
answer.
No, I'm
Oh,
holding the
okay.
mic for those in the room. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, then in that case, if there are no questions,
Anyone?
well, I love you all, and oh, go ahead.
I do have a question. How do you do you source all of your plants from like a nursery? Do you get like, is there a seed collection? Like, how do you
Thank you.
get all?
That was another thing I wanted to bring up. So we do get the vast majority of our plants from Feral Flora in Ann Arbor and Wild Type up in Mason. We have worked with the original Seeds to Community, and we actually helped set it up with Jonathan. He was one of our Jonathan Parker was one of our first community leaders, and sorry, I shouldn't read and talk at the same time. But one thing that I have wanted to do, and we've talked with Jonathan a bit about it, but if there are plants that you guys have that you don't know where they're going to go, and they're, especially if they're in plug flats, we can always take plants and find homes for them. And we always get ideas, or like people will ask, like, like, I have a park or a community and we want to get together and do something, but we don't have enough funds for plants. Then what we can do is we can gather plants and then bring them to people. So if you guys grow too many plants, probably not switchgrass or sorghastrum or a big blue stem, but
No, the handful. Most of what we have is under Jonathan's neat and tidy list, I think. So
okay, yeah, that was a fun list. We came up with it. We did Jonathan and I did a lot of talking while I was in New Zealand. What is my favorite type of garden to work on? I guess I would ask, what do you mean by type of garden? Samantha, if you want to just unmute it and ask the question out loud, that might be easier. As far as like gardens I like to build, I like more mesic soils in areas that are further away from where people are going to be walking, so I can use lots of big, tall plants. I like the challenge of front yard gardens, and I especially like when people want them to be in a new perennial kind of style, because just the challenge of designing it to the soil type. Most people don't choose that option because of how expensive both the design and installation is. This is going to be recorded, so I won't say anything. I love rain gardens. I enjoy rain gardens. I think most people that plant rain gardens don't need them. If you have sandy, well, where you guys are, I don't even know what you do, because a lot of Wayne County is a floodplain. So I like doing rain gardens. They are hard work. And while I do like hard work, that's a lot of hard work. Veggie gardens are fun. I love building raised beds. I love building raised beds out of unconventional materials. I love planting perennial edibles. Um, probably my favorite kind of garden. I don't know. I don't think you know what? I really like the combination of building hardscapes and gardens together. I really like when I can look at a landscape and there's a certain topography or flow of the land, and we can do things to kind of pull the natural topography out of it. That, like we can build a staircase or create like a nice patio, and then have it offset by flowers and sedges. I really enjoy when people want ponds. Ponds are so much fun to build, and then you get to use aquatic plants, which is a lot of fun. Um, Jennifer, what do you mean by new perennial? So new perennial is like a term that was coined, that basically it's just like a new style of building naturalistic gardens. So the idea is to use perennials in arrangements that make it look like it was always there, but with a lot of thought to color and texture, and especially winter interest. There are some amazing garden designers in the naturalistic or new perennial movement. Probably the most famous is Pate Audolph, who has the garden at Belle Isle. Um, he has some nice gardens, but I think there's more interesting designers, and everything is going to be said with caveat, because these people, they couch their gardens in ecological terms, but they use a lot of non-native plants. And I don't like, I like looking at them aesthetically, but the way that they talk about their gardens, I kind of think they're all con artists. I think they're making a lot of money off of people's fear of environmental destruction, and they work for big firms, and they do. They're beautiful gardens. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to, but they get their $3 million to build their gardens in Detroit, because they call it ecologically friendly when it's really not.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the talk. It was really interesting. You kind of gave sounded like a bit of a warning against proselytizing to others, maybe neighbors, at least certainly a warning not to be censorious and don't do this, don't do that, which it can often feel like, you're kind of chiding people about what they do and what they like. And I think that that's intelligent advice. At the same time, is the idea then really just let people come to you? It seems that even if you've got the most beautiful native plant garden that's ever been designed in your front lawn, there's only so many people that are going to come to you and say, I want to do that. People are really comfortable with and very set in their ways, and they might think, that's nice, but they ultimately they want their lawns and their typical situation. So I mean, obviously you do plenty of outreach, although I guess people do come to you and ask for your help. So I don't know, is it just don't proselytize ever, or is there like sort of a correct way to do it?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that there's no conversations. Um, but they have to evolve organically, and they have to be led by the other person. So the reason that I say that it starts from like within you, and just creating this sense of goodness and thinking about your neighbors and what will bring them in, is that you automatically start with an offering. It's respectful, it's beautiful, and then you let the people come to you. But letting people come to you doesn't mean that you stay inside your house. You got to be outside. You have to be interacting. When somebody walks by, you say hello. How you doing? hey, I got some raspberries. Would you like some? You know, so there's ways to do outreach without and I think that then the most important thing is that you can't have in the back of your mind, like, I want to change this person, because anybody smells that immediately, right? So what should be in your mind is like, oh, I'm interested in this person as a person. I'm interested in getting to know them because they're my neighbor. And yeah, if what they love is their lawn, let them have it. They're gonna live 78 years. We shouldn't be doing, you know, ecology. Ecology is the flow of energy, essentially, between and among the biotic and abiotic elements of our world. We humans have so much energy, and most of our energy is in our emotions. So if we can tap into that energy and we're putting good energy out into the world, we're just being good people. That is literally the most ecologically productive thing that we can do. And if we as native plant people are doing that, then what people are going to associate native plant people with is goodness. And if they just have that in their head, they're not thinking about us as these wild, crazy people. They're just like, wow, those are good people. They never tell me what to do. They're just always kind and giving things. They just come to you. And you don't have to, yeah, you don't have to, you're going to have, this is not to say that like, this is like some magic, right? No, it's just, you're going to have some cantankerous neighbors. Cool. You know, let them be cantankerous. You're not, you know, if they're not hanging out with you, if they don't want your bread or your muffins that you're making, well, they're not planting a garden, you know? But you never know. There might be some point where all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey. And they're like, I really love that pink flower you have there. What's that? And you're like, oh, it's echinacea. I have way too much of it. Would you like some? And they're like, whoa, you're just ripping it out of the ground? And you're like, yeah, these things are tough as nails, man. You can't kill them. And then they'll be like, really? Cool. Let's plant that in my garden. And then, then you all of a sudden you got echinacea. Sure, it's not native here, but whatever.
All right, and with that, we are gonna have to wrap up and no, you don't have to hold the button. You just have to turn it on. We're gonna wrap up and end the presentation. We went a little bit over our time and we still have to clean up the room that we are borrowing and get out so that the staff can go home. Thank you so much for your presentation.
You're welcome. And any of you guys can reach out to us anytime. Just send us an email. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. We like to talk. I appreciate it a lot. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you all.